Hello, and welcome to a digital lecture for Salt Lake Community College. This lecture will continue to cover Section 3.2 for Introduction to Statistics. We have been covering the normal distribution for all of Section 3.2. However, in this video, we would like to focus on the 98, 95, 99.7 rule. This is also sometimes called the empirical rule because it came from observations. Now, the empirical rule is a rule of thumb for approximating the probability of falling within 1, 2, and 3 standard deviations from the mean in the normal distribution. This will be useful in a wide range of practical settings, especially when we are trying to make quick estimates without a calculator or a z-table. Let's start by filling in the following boxes with the approximate percent of values that will fall within 1, 2, and 3 standard deviations from the mean in the normal distribution. Now, the empirical rule says that if you're starting at your mean, the center of your distribution, and if you were to go up 1 standard deviation, so mu plus sigma, or down 1 standard deviation, mu minus sigma, then this is where we should expect to find approximately 68% of our data. Similarly, if you're starting at your mean and you were to go up 2 standard deviations, so mu plus 2 sigma, or down 2 standard deviations, mu minus 2 sigma, then this is where we should expect to find approximately 95% of our data. And lastly, if we're starting at our mean and we go up 3 standard deviations, so mu plus 3 sigma, or down 3 standard deviations, mu minus 3 sigma, then this is where we should expect to find approximately 99% of our data. Let's look at an example. Now, this is where you may want to pause your video for a minute and see what you can fill in on your own. And then after you take a moment, let's come back and see how you did. I'll see you in a minute. Okay, I hope you paused your video and took a look at this example. Let's see how we did. If a distribution is bell-shaped, with a mean of 12 and a standard deviation of 2, let's find out approximately what percent of the data is in the following intervals. Now, a good starting place is to fill in each of the appropriate values that correspond to the empirical rule. So remember, when you're filling in these boxes, if you were to go up 1 standard deviation, so mu plus sigma, so 1 standard deviation, then that would land us at 14. So just add 1 standard deviation. Or if you go down 1 standard deviation, so subtract 2, you'd be at 10. And we know that approximately 68% of our data is going to be in this interval between 10 and 14. If you were to go up 2 standard deviations, so add another 2, you'd be at 16, or subtract 2, another standard deviation, we'd be at 8. And we know approximately 95% of the data is going to fall within this interval. Lastly, if you go up one more standard deviation and down 1 more standard deviation, then this is where we should expect to find approximately 99.7% of our data. Now let's see if we can answer the questions. So approximately, what percent of the data is in the interval between 10 and 14? So notice that 10 and 14, this is the interval created by going up and down one standard deviation. And we know there's going to be approximately 68% of the data in this interval by the empirical rule. Okay, next one. Approximately what percent of the data is less than 8 or greater than 16? Now, notice that less than 8 would be this region here, and it goes all the way out to the tip. And greater than 16 would be this region here. And remember, it goes all the way out to the end. Now, the way I'm going to calculate this area is to notice that we know 95% of the data falls within 2 standard deviations, which is here, which is between 8 and 16, which means the rest of the area is going to have to be 1 minus 95%, or 5% of the data. Oh, let me get rid of that decimal point, or that percent symbol. There we go. 1 minus 0.95 is 0.05, or 5% of the data would live in the outer tails that we have in green. Okay, last part. If the distribution is bell-shaped with a mean of 12 and a standard deviation of 2, approximately 99.7% of the data are between which 2 values? So here we want to know that 99.7 corresponds to 3 standard deviations, and so we know that this data has to be between the values of 6 and 18. Okay, this about covers all of the definitions and theory that you need to know for the empirical rule. If you have further questions, be sure to review the example videos that follow or ask your instructor.